Imagine this, you're buckled in on a transatlantic flight from New York to London, sipping champagne in first class, when suddenly a flight attendant demands you move because you don't belong here. But what if that passenger was a brilliant, black teen, and 5 minutes later, the entire plane is grounded by a call from her CEO father? If heart-pounding tales of injustice turned triumph hook you like they do millions across the USA and UK stories that expose hidden biases and deliver sweet, satisfying payback, then hit that subscribe button right now. Don't miss out on more edge-of-your-seat narratives that challenge the status quo and empower the underdog. Subscribe today and join the community fighting for equality one story at a time. Now, dive into this epic 4,000-word saga. In the bustling heart of John F. Kennedy International Airport, amidst the chaotic symphony of rolling suitcases, hurried announcements, and the faint aroma of overpriced coffee, stood Olea Thompson, a 17-year-old black teenager with dreams as vast as the ocean she was about to cross. Her skin glowed under the harsh fluorescent lights, her curly hair tied back in a neat ponytail, and she clutched a boarding pass that read first class like a golden ticket to a new world. Olea wasn't just any teen. She was a prodigy, having graduated high school at 15 and now heading to Oxford University on a full scholarship for astrophysics. But today, she was simply excited, her heart racing with anticipation for her first solo international flight, funded by her own savings. From tutoring gigs and a small grant, this trip was her reward, a symbol of her hard work paying off. As she boarded Flight 742 to London Heathrow, she couldn't help but smile, settling into Seat 1A with a sigh of relief. The leather was plush, the legroom endless, and for once she felt like she belonged in a space usually reserved for the elite. Little did she know, this flight would become the stage for a drama that would unravel prejudices, expose hypocrisies, and ground an entire aircraft in a twist of fate no one saw coming. The plane filled up quickly, passengers shuffling in with their carry-ons, and Olea pulled out her notebook, sketching equations for a black hole simulation she was working on. Across the aisle, in 1B, sat Karen Whitaker, a middle-aged white woman in designer clothes, her face etched with entitlement. Karen eyed Olea suspiciously from the moment she sat down, her lips pursing as if tasting something sour. "Excuse me," Karen finally said, her voice dripping with faux politeness. "Are you sure you're in the right seat? This is first class." Olea looked up, startled but composed. "Yes, ma'am. I double-checked my boarding pass." She held it up briefly, but Karen waved it away. "Well, it must be a mistake. People like you usually fly economy." The words hung in the air like a slap, the racism thinly veiled behind people like you. Olea's stomach twisted, but she had faced this before: microaggressions in school, assumptions about her intelligence. She chose silence, plugging in her earbuds and focusing on her music. But Karen wasn't done. She flagged down a flight attendant, a young man named Todd, who approached with a practiced smile. "This girl is in the wrong section," Karen whispered loudly enough for Olea to hear. "I paid good money for this flight, and I don't want any disruptions." Todd glanced at Olea, his eyes narrowing slightly. He asked for her boarding pass, scanned it, and for a moment, everything seemed fine. But then, under Karen's insistent glare and perhaps his own biases, he hesitated. "Ma'am, there might have been an overbooking error. Would you mind moving to economy? We have a nice seat there." Olea's eyes widened in disbelief. "What? No, this is my seat. I upgraded with miles." The argument escalated quietly at first, but soon other passengers noticed. A businessman in row 2 rolled his eyes, muttering about delays. Karen crossed her arms, smug. Todd, pressured, called over the senior attendant, a woman named Marlene, who reviewed the situation. "To avoid any issues, perhaps it's best if you relocate," Marlene said to Olea, her tone apologetic but firm. Olea felt tears prick her eyes but refused to let them fall. "This is discrimination," she said steadily. "I'm not moving." The word hung heavy, and Marlene sighed. "Security will have to handle this if you don't comply." Minutes ticked by as the plane taxied toward the runway, the captain announcing takeoff soon. Olea, humiliated, gathered her things under duress, her mind racing. As she stood to leave, her phone buzzed in her pocket, a text from her father. "Safe travels, kiddo. Call if anything." Her father, Marcus Thompson, wasn't just any dad. He was the CEO of Aerotech Industries, a massive aerospace company that designed engines for half the world's airlines, including this one. But Olea never name-dropped. She wanted to earn her way. Now though, as she was escorted to the back like a criminal, whispers following her, she dialed his number on impulse. "Dad," she whispered, voice breaking, "they're kicking me out of first class because ... because I'm black, I think." Marcus, in a board meeting in Chicago, froze. "What? Which airline?" "Flight number," she told him, and he ended the call abruptly with, "Stay put, I'll handle this." 5 minutes later, as Olea squeezed into a cramped economy seat next to a snoring elderly man, the plane shuddered to a halt on the tarmac. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've encountered an unexpected issue. We'll be returning to the gate shortly." Murmurs rippled through the cabin. In first class, Karen sipped her wine, pleased with herself. But then, the announcement continued. Due to a directive from airline headquarters, the flight is grounded until further notice. Chaos ensued. Passengers groaned, checking watches, pulling out phones. Alia's heart pounded. What had her dad done? Back at the gate, ground crew swarmed the plane, and soon, airline executives were on board. Marcus Thompson had called the airline CEO directly, a man he golfed with annually, and dropped a bomb. Your staff just racially profiled my daughter. Ground that plane, or Aerotech pulls all contracts. The threat was real. Aerotech supplied critical parts, and losing them could cripple operations. The airline CEO, panicking, ordered the grounding immediately. As passengers deplaned amid confusion, Olia was approached by a flustered Marlena. Miss Thompson, there's been a terrible misunderstanding. Please come with me. Olia, still in shock, followed to a private lounge where her father was on a video call. Baby girl, you okay? He asked, his face stern but loving. She nodded, tears flowing now. The twists began unfolding. It turned out Karen Whitaker wasn't just a random passenger. She was the wife of a rival aerospace executive at a competing firm, one that had been trying to undercut Aerotech for years. Her complaint wasn't random racism, it was targeted sabotage. Karen had recognized Olia from a company newsletter Marcus had shared at an industry event, boasting about his daughter's achievements, jealous of Aerotech's success and harboring her own prejudices. Karen had boarded the same flight intentionally, booking last minute to stir trouble and embarrass the Thompsons. But that was just the first layer. As investigators dug in, prompted by Marcus's influence, they discovered Todd, the flight attendant, had a history of complaints for biased behavior, swept under the rug by the airline to avoid scandals. Marlene, too, was complicit, having ignored similar incidents before. The grounding wasn't just for Alia. It became a full audit. Passengers, now delayed hours, started piecing things together via social media. Olia, encouraged by her dad, tweeted about the incident, kicked out of first class for being black. 5 minutes later, plane grounded, #justice in the air. It went viral, retweets from celebrities, activists in the USA and UK amplifying the story. Protests formed at the airport, signs reading "No room for racism" at 30,000 feet. Karen, realizing her plan backfired, tried to slip away, but security detained her for questioning. In a shocking revelation, phone records showed she had texted her husband mid-flight, got the Thompson kid rattled. This'll hit their rep hard. The sabotage plot unraveled, leading to her husband's company facing lawsuits for corporate espionage. But the twists deepened. Alia, in the lounge, met another passenger affected by the delay, a young British journalist named Emily Hargrove, who was en route to cover a climate summit. Emily, inspired by Alia's poise, interviewed her on the spot, the story hitting UK headlines. Teen prodigies ordeal grounds transatlantic flight. As compensation, the airline upgraded all economy passengers to business class on the rescheduled flight. But Alia declined, choosing to fly economy in solidarity. "I don't need special treatment," she said. "I need change." Her father arrived, on a private jet, hugging her tightly. "You handled that like a boss," he whispered. But here's where it twisted again. Marcus revealed he wasn't just her dad, he was her adoptive father. Alia's biological parents had died in a car accident when she was young, and Marcus, a family friend, took her in. Unbeknownst to her, her bio dad had been a pioneering engineer at Aerotech, inventing tech that made Marcus's fortune. This flight incident uncovered old company secrets. Karen's husband had been involved in stealing those inventions years ago, leading to the accident that orphaned Alia. It wasn't proven murder, but suspicious. The grounding sparked a federal investigation, exposing a web of corruption spanning decades. Alia, thrust into the spotlight, used her platform to advocate for anti-bias training in airlines,